Hello and welcome to World of Tanks with Trapsikis. It's been a while since I've shown you one of my own games, so I played on the questionable province map. Now, personally I'm not sure why they brought it back the way they did. It's a little bit bigger than it was previously, but it's still too small. If you look at the circles on the minimap there, yeah, this map is maybe a kilometer across, so it's not appropriate for tanks above perhaps tier 5. Anyway, my opinion aside, I do apologize for boring you with a snipey TD game, but on this map you don't have a lot of options for your lightly armored big gun TD. Right, so when you look at the T71 CMCD over across on the enemy side of the valley, and you're sniping from this side, you shouldn't be looking at him. You should be aimed at spots where people might be spotted by him. So try to imagine in your mind a line of sight from where he is and where he's about to be, and then you pre-aim to the enemies that are likely to be there. You'll also notice that I do a lot of zooming out and zooming in. That's simply to make myself aware of the relative positions of the different enemies, because I don't know the map that well to be able to actually see everything from the minimap yet. Alright, so we lose the one of our TDs early on, but it's a bottom tier, so it's not that big of a loss. And then I decide to move to the other side of the building simply because of the shape of the buildings, and I'll be able to cover more of the valley from here while still being fully concealed. Right, so this T28 comes out behind those buildings, and I land one shot, and then I plan ahead to see where it's going to be shootable again, but unfortunately my shell doesn't hit. So always try to pre-plan when enemies are moving long range. Try to pre-plan, and there I make a crucial mistake. I decided to rather shoot at the T28 instead of falling back after I knew that I was spotted already. And the penalty I paid for that was to get shot not only by the E25 that likely spotted me, but also by a Tiger. And fortunately for me, when the E25 shot again, it bounced on I don't know what. This tank doesn't really have a lot of armor to bounce on, but fortunately for me, he found that. Right, so we're 4 tanks down, and the enemy has only lost 2, and the E25 somehow spots me again. Now this was a bit of a fishy one for me because I hadn't fired yet, so maybe the E25 was just taking a pot shot, which is something I do often, and hoping that I was dumb enough to appear at the same spot, and fortunately for him I was. Right, so what I was doing there, I pre-aimed or auto-aimed on the M41 GF. That is something that I do often when light tanks are trying to circle strafe my allies. You auto-aim on them and you wait for them to turn so that they're moving exactly opposite direction you're facing or in the direction you're facing. That makes it much easier to hit them because you never know which way they're going, and you never know when they're going to hit spacebar and do a handbrake turn or whatever. But if they're facing right at you or straight away from you, it's much harder for them to change their trajectory and much easier for you to hit them, especially at longer range. Right, so I take out the 88 there. He was kind enough to show me his backside, and now my friendly FV4202 is in the tight spot. The T28 has his good armor facing towards him, and he's behind some rocks, so chances are RT won't hit him. And then the 20mm gunner that's camping behind the artillery decides to take him out. We'll be seeing more of 20mm gunner later on. Right, so unfortunately the ghost-like E25 that hasn't been spotted in a while, that has shot me 3 times so far, takes out our Jackson, leaving us 2 tanks behind. So the enemies have 9 and we've got 7. Not a big deficit, but if you count the numbers of tiers, they've got 1 top tier and we've got 2, 3, so that makes quite a difference. Right, so D3485, I know his turret side is vulnerable. I take a pot shot, and fortunately for me, it penetrates, and the M44 is able to finish the job, quickly closing the gap between the number of tanks on their side and ours. But now if you look at the minimap, you'll see that there's 2 enemy medium tanks in our base already. And have a look at where I'm aiming here. I'm aiming for the front track of the Panther 88, making sure that I track him in place again, just in case he decided to use his repair kit, or perhaps had a repair crew that was already repairing the tracks. And then I notice there's a slight gap between the IS Corps and the building, so I can take out the 88, and the E25 is rushing across the open field. I'm going to pause there for a second, and you notice that I used auto aim there. Now, part of the aiming mechanics in this game that I've noticed is when you're free looking, then obviously it's showing you the reticle of the terrain that you're looking at. But if there's an enemy tank that's closer to you than the terrain that you're looking at, obviously behind him, then you can aim lower than you would be able to in free look. So auto aim will actually help you to hit something that's below your gun line, below your gun depression line, if you auto aim, because of the closer distance. It's not a very big difference. It's still the same degrees of gun depression, but because it's a different target, the observable or the effective gun depression seems better. So when someone is about to go below your gun line, below the amount of gun depression you have, auto aim, and you will have that extra split second of still being able to hit them. Right, so we've got the 85M creeping up behind me here. M44 noticed it before I did, so he's using the building for cover. But now I need to push forward and protect the artillery. Unfortunately for me, it's a bit of a high roll on the 85M, and I take him out. But his friend is not far behind, and he puts a big hit into me. I'm now probably a one-shot for him. It's less than 10% above his average damage. So if he penetrates, unfortunately for me, he gets a low roll. So I'm down to 28 hit points. I know the artillery knows where I am because I've killed a couple of guys here and I haven't moved. So I need to use the buildings here to avoid getting shot by the artillery. And then I notice that I'm nearly out of AP shells. So the Tiger there, on 573 hit points, would have been 3 shots for me. But fortunately, not only does the artillery hit him, but our 20mm gunner camper manages to take him out. Now things are looking a lot better for us. And this is something I do often as well, ad hoc platoon to get the Brothers in Arms medal, or sometimes even the crucial contribution, which is obviously not likely in this scenario. So, now I know we've got an enemy tier 7 medium tank that's probably in our base, and he's going to light me up for artillery. I can't afford to get splashed, so I move such that I won't be easy for the T-43 to spot, and then of course he appears behind me just as I get ready to engage my binoculars to spot across the valley and try to find the artillery. But fortunately, our artillery is very good, and not only does he damage the 43, but he engages his attention long enough for me to come out and take a shot. But now I know the 43 is pointing at me. I can't ride a shot, and I don't have a lot of shells, so I don't want to snap any shots. Fortunately, I realize that he's fired, but he's smart enough to move around the rock, so I don't have a chance there unless he backs out and gives me his nice juicy side armor. Right, so my last AP shell, I'm hoping for some support, and then I notice our M44 is running, and our P43 is not running. He's actually attacking. So I was starting to get annoyed at the guy camping behind the artillery, and now he's actually doing a very clever play. And notice how he's handling this. He knows where the 43 is, and he knows where I am. So instead of interjecting himself between me and the 43, he's going to the other side of the rock for 2 very good reasons. First, to force him to choose one of us. He won't be able to shoot at both of us. And secondly, to not get in the way of my fire. So I won't accidentally hit him, and I won't have to wait for him to drive all the way past the 43 before I can shoot. Now, I'm down to only HE shells, but that's alright, because they're down to only SPGs. And the penetration on these shells are 47 millimeters with a 1.58 blast radius. So on a tier 6 artillery like the M44, I have a good chance of penetrating and taking him out with one shot. But now I know the reload of the FE304 is very fast. I know his traverse speed is quite fast, and I don't want to die. I want to survive this game to get my brothers in arms. So I back off, let the P43 take the kill, putting him on 4 and myself on 6, leaving both of us with quite a nice result. Let's have a look at the post-game stats. I was fortunate enough to get my first battle stripe in this. I don't believe I've played 100 games yet, so hopefully I will be able to get another stripe. The ace tanker there, brothers in arms because of our ad hoc platoon, and then the high caliber and the top gun. If you look at the team details, the total damage was just over 4,000. So if you noticed that the in-game client showed less than 4,000, about 3.8. So there was obviously a blind hit that connected. I'm not sure which one that was. The basic speed there, 1491, really not bad if I don't say so myself. And on the personal details, you'll notice I wasn't using any reserves, and I still managed to make about 13,000 profit. And if you're astute, you would have noticed that I was not running any premium ammunition. That's simply because I haven't noticed that it's necessary at all with this tank, with this gun. The accuracy and penetration is such that you can actually use the standard shells and the HE shells intermittently and have a very, very good result indeed. However, based on the results here, I might consider taking a couple of APCR shells just for those engagements where you have a lot of high tier enemies to face. Thank you for watching, and I hope I didn't bore you too much with the Snipey game, and at least taught you a couple of tips on how to aim and when to aim.